This season, Instacart has your back to school. As in, they've got your back to school lunch favorites, like snack packs and fresh fruit. And they've got your back to school supplies, like backpacks, binders, and pencils. And they've got your back when your kid casually tells you they have a huge school project due tomorrow. Let's face it, we were all that kid. So first call your parents to say I'm sorry, and then download the Instacart app to get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes all school year long. Get a $0 delivery fee for your first 3 orders while supplies last. Minimum $10 per order. Additional terms apply.
Have you ever covered a carpet stain with a rug? Ignored a leaky faucet? Pretended your half-painted living room is supposed to look like that? Well, you're not alone. We've all got unfinished home projects. But there's an easier way. Thumbtack is the app that makes it easier to care for your home. Pull out your phone and in just a few taps, search, chat, and book highly rated pros right in your neighborhood. Download Thumbtack and start caring for your home the easier way.
Explore the history of Wish TV, one of Indiana's longest-running television stations. We'll take a deep dive and interview the people who have helped bring some of the most important stories to Indiana since 1954. This is our story, our Wish story. Local then, now, and always. Wish TV.
For almost 30 years, she was one of the most recognizable faces on Wish TV. From reporter to anchor to community affairs director, Tina Cosby was a cornerstone at Channel 8. Whether anchoring the weekend news or reporting on the infamous Mike Tyson rape trial, Cosby was known for her calm demeanor and fearless approach to journalism. Tina Cosby, welcome to Wistery.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Madison, Indiana.
Yes.
Way down south on the river.
Yes.
Is that, I'll just come out and say it, is that known as for a lot of black people in that community?
When I was growing up, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah. Because segregation, you have to understand, created a lot of separate communities within a lot of these smaller towns, and Richmond, Evansville's larger, but Madison, North Vernon, a lot of those places that you wouldn't think that would be known for black people. There were pockets of, large pockets of black people. We had an entire community, if you will, neighborhood, an entire economy.
Wow.
Where I grew up, yeah. Absolutely.
I only ask because I go there and I go camping down there a lot.
Okay, Clifton
and
Falls.
I don't see any people of color down there anymore.
Probably not. You have to know where to go.
Okay.
Now you have to know where to go.
And we stick to the Clifton Falls and we go downtown to the main street.
You stick to the main places.
Okay. That's why I was a bit confused when I first saw it. So you go to IU, but not to study journalism. You study, is it psychiatry at first?
Yes. Very good. Pre-med with the intent to go into psychiatry. Absolutely. Yes, I did.
What was the initial spark behind that?
An elective course, and I couldn't get what I wanted, and so I'd always liked to write from high school. And so I said, well, I like writing, and it had broadcast journalism writing or something. No, journalism writing, something. I can't remember what the name of the course was, but it was writing. And I took the writing course and liked it. I took another one. It was a 3-series, J1, J2, J3, and took another one. And so got into the broadcasting side of it, matching pictures with words. Had a professor that was impressed with my ability to do so. He encouraged me to apply for an internship so that I could further that. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't want to get too far off base here. You got to stay with this. This is just something I like to do. I got to stay with my intent here. And he said, I tell you what, you apply for the internship. If you get it and you go down and do it and you don't like it, I will pay for you to catch back up. I said, are you serious? He said, yeah. He said, I'm that sure you'll like it. Got the internship, was shocked. Because I was one of 80 applicants, including people who had been in journalism and yearbook and newspaper and everything else from high school on. This is literally my first ever class of this nature. Set of classes, so I didn't have nearly the background that a lot of the other applicants did. But I did somehow have some kind of a presence, I guess. I don't know what you would call it, but we put together a reel. They called it back then, put together a demonstration reel, tape. Put together a tape. I did some news reads, sent some writing samples, and they said, hey, we like you. come on down. So and this was at Wave TV, Louisville, Kentucky, just outside of Madison. And they only pick from the Kentuckiana area, they only pick 2. One was a young lady from, I think it was Western Kentucky, and then it was me from Indiana University. We were the only 2 interns picked, which was even a smaller pool, if you will. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on? Maybe I do. So fast forward to do the internship, started loving it, couldn't get enough of it, came back, smiled, told the professor, you were right. Just took me a summer session to catch up to everything, and the rest was history. I graduated with a degree in telecommunications with a focus in broadcast journalism.
What was it like to be on the IU campus in the late 70s, early 80s?
The best time ever. I loved it. It is nothing like the young people who are there now. I absolutely loved it. It was the best time of my life. I enjoyed that immensely. High school was nothing compared to when I went to IU. Friends for life, people that I'm still friends. I mean, I was just talking to a friend of mine right before I came in here, literally on the phone with a friend of mine that I met at IU. We were talking about her sister who's in the hospital and her fiance who's overseas right now and all kinds of stuff. So I just loved it. The sense of community, at that time, I don't know, it wasn't me, but IU was considered one of the top party schools and universities in the country. I don't know what publication or whatever named it that, but the vibe was so much that everybody wanted to go to IU. Everybody wanted to enjoy. Now, I didn't just party all the time, but I had a pretty nice time there. It's just the people. I don't know. I can't really explain it.
It helps they win a championship in 1981.
Oh, it did help.
How was that?
That was unbelievable. I was down at Showalter Fountain. I was down there for that.
You were there? Is
I wasn't
that when the
Philly.
Dolphin disappeared?
No, I don't know. I wasn't in the 1981 was the year that we won in Philadelphia,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I was down at the fountain. It may have been, I don't know, but I had several friends that I had classes with. I mean, I didn't have classes with Ray, but I had classes with Isaiah, Jimmy Thomas, and there was one other person who was on that championship team. And we all went to class together. And I can attest to the fact that they said Bobby Knight made all of his students go to class. They absolutely did. Some of them would be flying back from games and get in at 2 or 3 in the morning, but they would be in class the next morning. That is true story. It's true. They were there. So it was just fun. It was just a lot of fun. And I didn't mind going a summer session to catch up.
I only asked. My mother went to IU in the 70s, played basketball for the women's team in the mid-70s, and I went to IU.
Yeah.
And she would walk me around the campus and tell me about, and this happened here. And as a little kid, I romanticized that place so much.
Yeah.
I can only imagine what it was like being there.
It was unbelievable.
In that time.
Unbelievable.
So, were you struggling to choose between IU and Louisville? Is that what I read?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So IU was your school of choice.
What happened was, I think I can maybe shed a little light on what you're asking. What happened was, when I went to Louisville to do the internship, one of the requirements was that you had to have 2 packaged reports to air on the newscast to complete the internship. I had 6 maybe, plus a couple of pieces, that I had done for a community affairs show because I just couldn't get enough. I wanted to keep doing it. And so my senior year, while I was there, and I already had my tape from working commercially, the former news director here, Lee Giles, was friends with a guy in Lexington, Kentucky, Ken Kurtz. Ken was looking for a reporter. And so, no, that was when I came. That was, okay, let me go back. When I finished the internship and I was sending out my tapes, Kentucky, Lexington, I was about to graduate, and Ken in Lexington wanted to hire me right away. And I said, I haven't graduated yet. I said, thank you that you like my tape, but I haven't graduated yet. He said, well, you can finish at the University of Kentucky. Here, we've got classes. I said, oh, no. I'm finishing my degree at Indiana University. I only had one more semester to go, and I said, I will not graduate from the University of Kentucky. And so I just took a leap of faith, and I thought, if I have a job offer now, before I even graduate, I'm just hoping and praying that when I do graduate, the job market will open up. So when I graduated, of course, I didn't have a job. I did not have a job. But I had sent out tapes again, done the routine.
And this is 81?
I graduated in 81.
81. Yeah. So we're in the middle of a recession, I believe, right? It's just starting.
Probably so. And we were going to Atlanta. Some friends of ours, we were all going to Atlanta. So along the way, I dropped off a tape. The cities that had television stations, I just dropped off a tape. And one of the cities on the route was Chattanooga, Tennessee. Dropped off a tape there. They liked it, called me, said, hey, what do you think about coming to work here? I went, spent a couple of years there. While I was there, Lee Giles, who is friends with Ken Kurtz in Lexington, Lee was looking for a reporter. And Ken had told him about me. He said, well, I almost hired. Lee didn't know about me when I went to Tennessee, but he knew about me when I was at Tennessee because his friend Ken, who had hired me when I was, or wanted to hire me, he did hire me, and I turned it down. When I was at IU, he was in Kentucky, in Lexington, Kentucky, KYT. Then he said, Lee, I know of a young lady. She's from Indiana. I hired her. She didn't end up taking the job. I think she might be good, and she probably is ready because she's been down there. She might be ready to take the job. So Lee Giles called me in Chattanooga and said, hey, I'm Lee Giles, the news director here at Wish TV. And I said, well, Lee, frankly, ironically, I'm going to be in Indiana. I'm going to be in Indiana in a couple of days. He said, oh, great. Can you come by? So I came by. We talked. I don't remember how it all came about after that, but I do know a short time later I was working here as a general assignment reporter.
What station were you at in Chattanooga?
WTVC.
WTVC, okay.
ABC affiliate. TV9, Channel 9.
What?
Action 9.
What did you know about Wish TV before you came here?
Not much. The only thing I knew about Wish was that it was one of the Indianapolis stations that I did not want to come back to. My sights were set on either Dallas or Atlanta, because being down in Chattanooga, Tennessee, an outside place would have been Memphis, but I liked the South. I wanted to stay down there after I got down there. The fact that Indianapolis and Wish TV had called, I was like, okay, well, I'll talk and I'll see. But I'm really not interested in going back to Indiana.
What did you like about the South?
Oh, I love the weather, the people, the food. And the television that they did down there was pretty good. The only thing I really knew about Indianapolis or paid attention to Indianapolis television was Channel 4, because it's independent on all the cable networks across, most of Indiana. And that's where I got most of my information and news. Wish, Channel 6, and Channel 13, I just didn't know a whole lot about. Yeah.
So you come in here. Talk to me about your first impressions when you walked through those doors at 1950 North Meridian.
I don't remember an impression one way or another. It was a TV station.
And this is 83.
Yeah, 83.
So wood paneling probably everywhere.
Wood paneling everywhere. In fact, what I'm most struck with is how all the wood has been either replaced or painted over, because this used to be 1970s, 60s, 70s wood all the way. It was a woody building. Mm-hmm. But that was the decor at the time. So, nice enough TV station. Yeah.
You mentioned Lee Giles. Mm-hmm. Talk about him a little more. What are your impressions of Lee?
Very professional, very much interested in news, and, very knowledgeable about central Indiana, the landscape, and things of that nature. So, yeah.
You start as a general assignment reporter, mm-hmm. but eventually you move to weekends, to anchor. Mm-hmm. Talk about that transition.
Well, it was a transition that I had talked to Lee about in terms of if any possibilities arise, I would like to do that, because that's what I was doing in Chattanooga. I was doing the morning anchoring cut-ins within the Good Morning America show. And then after that, I remember anchoring a lot more. I'm trying to remember how that went. But I definitely had the responsibilities for all of the anchoring during the morning show in Chattanooga. And I liked it, and I wanted to try it. I enjoyed reporting, too. And Lee was happy to hear that I was interested in reporting as well as anchoring.
And that's not until 1993 when you finally moved to the weekend spot.
Wasn't right away.
Wasn't right away.
Mm-mm.
But you were the first anchor on the air, first black anchor on the air in 6 years in this market. Did that feel important to you, or did that feel...
You talking about on the weekends or when I went to weekdays?
On the weekends.
Okay.
Sorry, you moved to the weekdays in 93. Sorry. Then you were the first one on the weekday slot.
I felt that
years.
then. On the weekends, I did not feel it because there were a number of other African Americans, male and female, who were anchoring weekend newscasts. So I was one of...
I mean, you were
others.
here with, not here, but there's Angela Kane's in the market at this point in time, and a few others, if I recall.
I think Angela didn't come to the market until maybe like 87.
87, okay.
But there was like Jonas Chaney, who was here. Who else was over there? I'm trying to remember. There were others. Jonas was right here. But there were others who were anchoring on weekends.
And you moved to weekends here in 85. That's checking my notes. It's 85 you moved to weekends. So you're only here for 2 years. They move you to weekend anchor. Were you with Ken Owens right away? Or?
No, I wasn't. I was never with Ken. I was with Eric Halverson.
Okay.
On the weekends. And when I was moved to weekdays, that's when I was with Ken.
Okay. Any particular stories you have about working as a weekend news anchor, evening news anchor? Because you would do the 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. show?
All of them.
Up to 11, I believe.
Yeah.
What was that like on the weekends?
Fast. It was fast. You as with any other place of employment, weekends tend to be skeleton staff. So I liked working on the weekends because I learned a lot more. I was forced to learn a lot more, and I could do a lot more. I think my news judgment sharpened, my proficiency in terms of, kicking out stories, meeting deadlines, doing different things. All of those things sharpen you on the weekends. So it was quite the learning experience. Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah.
Any stories stick out in that between 85 and 93 on those weekend shifts?
Oh, my goodness. I think there was one story that stuck out. Eric and I did, and I had never heard of this particular practice. And we were, at the end of the show, you do what you call the kicker, which is the light-hearted, feel-good ending to the show. And so our kicker, we kicked that day with dwarf tossing, and I have never broken up on the air like that, and before that or since that. And Eric, God love him, he was so good because you're looking down at the monitor, and that for that particular day, I did not get a chance to see. A lot of times we see the video or at least go over the script, and for whatever reason, I might have been out, and I got to the set late, and that was not unusual either. You just get there and just go, sit and go. And so I just didn't have a chance to prepare myself for it. And I looked down and I was like, huh? And then all of a sudden, I could not stop. I'm like, who does that? Who signs up for that? And who video? I mean, it just. So Eric got so tickled about that, and I got so that you talk about something that's memorable. That one was one of the most memorable stories in the sense that I didn't have control. Mm-hmm. And the director was really good and kind of panned over to Eric until I could compose myself because I was losing it. I mean, it was a belly.
And it's got to be frustrating because you want to be in control.
Yeah,
you can't.
Yes, no, it was too funny. It was so absurd and so outrageous. I mean, these people could die. What are y'all doing? So I was just.
Was it a bar or where?
It was a bar. It was a bar. It was at a bar. Of course, it was at a bar. So, that's one I'll never forget. But you had your I don't want to say garden variety, but your typical fires, and there were some really sad stories. There was another story I think that happened when I was on the weekends, and I can't remember if it was when I was on the anchor chair or not. I think I was anchoring on the weekends, and it was Tramp the dog, and then there was a little girl who was abused and had to have her toes and part of her foot amputated because she was put in hot water by a parent that was later arrested for child abuse. But I juxtaposition those things because Tramp, the dog, was a dog that was in the middle of a dispute between two neighbors, right? And this dispute had been going on forever. And the bottom line was Tramp was defecating in the neighbor's yard, and the neighbor had not stopped it. And so the person whose yard Tramp kept going in got really upset one day and hooked Tramp up to the back of his pickup truck and took him for a ride. Oh. So Tramp was horribly scarred, horribly. It was a horrible thing. Both things were horrible. They were horrible. But there was a fund, a collection taken up for Tramp the dog, and over $50,000 was donated for his medical care, which he did survive and everything else. And so, I think almost right after that, shortly after that, I think I remember the little girl's name was Melissa. I don't know why, I just remember that, and she was taken, out of the home and. Somebody in the community decided that they wanted to raise some money for her, and I think it was less than half of what was raised for Tramp.
Of course, yeah,
and that was an eye opener for me in terms of news, human nature, all kinds of things. It's just like, really, this dog upset you more than this child. Not that they were both horrible, but the fact that people were willing to open up their pocketbooks more for a dog than a little girl.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuck with me too. So those two things, Tramp the dog and little Melissa, and then the dwarf tossing, if I can put them in that time frame, was when I was on the anchor desk this weekend.
What's it like being a working mom on the weekends?
Horrible.
Because you have two kids?
It was awful.
How young were they when you started that weekend shift?
Oh, well, firstborn. What it was when they came I had gone back to weekends after they were here, which was harder because when they were, brand new and little, I was on weekdays. So it was a little bit easier. But, we got through it. We made it. As any parent would know, it's never easy when you're working, whether it's weekend days, nights, holidays, or what have you. It's never easy, but they're good. It was not an easy time.
You joined Wish in 1983. Mm-hmm. I want to say May 7th. I have to check my notes on that.
I think it was the contract.
I think it was May 7th. We'll say it's May 7th, 83. Okay. How soon do you start to become recognized in the community?
I don't know. I think that repetition, reinforcement, what have you. So, television is kind of a tricky thing. I think when people see you on it doesn't take long. It doesn't take long for people to see you, because especially if you're on, through the week, on, in their living rooms, and then on every weekend, when a lot of people, you get a lot more viewership. That's why certain shows are programmed on Sunday evenings, 60 Minutes and the like, because that's the largest viewership of the week. So you get a lot of people watching. You get different. So I had different audiences when I was reporting through the week. I had a different audience, and then when I was reporting and anchoring on weekends, I had a different audience. So I probably had it a little bit quicker recognition than maybe somebody who just had a designated time and spot. So it didn't take long.
Did you have to testify during the Tyson trial, or were you just subpoenaed, or almost subpoenaed?
Subpoenaed, and I did not testify. Okay. I did not testify during the trial. I was prepared. I was prepped, and semi-deposed, I guess.
So we'll give some context here. There's a Tyson press conference on September 11th of 91, 9/11/91, and at some point in time after the press conference, I believe, Tyson leans over to his camp manager. This is in downtown Indianapolis, Horn, and says something, and you can't quite hear what he's saying. And later on, during the rape trial in 92, Wish says, "We have a tape." and the camera was rolling, and we may have picked up what he said about either the victim or you or what happened.
Carl Fincham, the late Carl Fincham, was the photographer at the time. And, you know, when you have a press conference, you have all of the microphones there, and everybody, after the camera stopped rolling and they declared, Carl had not taken the mic. It was still hot. Okay, long story short. And so Carl was like, "Did you hear this?" And I'm like, "What?" And he said, "Tina, you should hear what it sounds." And I'm like, "Oh." And then, you know, what you said, of course. And so I'm not sure what path was taken with Carl. I know what was taken with me. And a lot of care. Ultimately, it was deemed not usable, and so we didn't go any further with it. But I was there, and I was to be there as a potential witness, and I did have to sit outside the courtroom until I wasn't needed.
Wow!
When they declared that it would not be.
And Wish TV, I think Lee Giles makes the decision to air the tape for the public since it's not going to be used in the trial. The station management goes, you know what, let's put it out there and the public can decide.
Let people decide and let them listen.
What was it like being a reporter who found yourself potentially having to be a witness and now you're in the media? Your name's in the paper.
It was different. You know, that whole Tyson trial was so... I don't even know what to say about it. It was just, it was all the feels, if you will, in terms of reporting, you know, the opportunity to report on something this large, in terms of reporting on the topic, the people that you meet. I mean, I met Don King, had a conversation with Don King. Don King called me. You know, it was just all very, very different. To be a reporter during that time. I met some members of the media from New York. In fact, we became friends because we were together every day down at that courthouse forever. And you became, you know, you become friends. Sports Illustrated and a couple of other media outlets that were not TV one was TV. We're sharing our newsroom. You know how that goes, affiliates and different things. So we were helping each other.
And this is downstairs in the building?
Downstairs when the newsroom was in the basement, yeah. So we were helping each other. So it was a time unlike I had ever seen before and like I've never seen since, if that makes sense. So, yeah, it was quite the trial. But when you have somebody... At that time, he was probably the biggest name, not only in sports, but in the U.S. and overseas and Far East. I mean, Mike Tyson was the man. So you just really, I don't know that you could fully appreciate the gravity of everything that was going on and everything that you were being called to do. But the main thing is you do it because it's the story's got to be on the air.
Did you cover that trial from start to finish?
I'm assuming I did.
Okay.
But here's the thing. We had what we call team coverage. So I covered certain aspects. Other people covered certain aspects. So it was, I think that trial may have been divided up 3, maybe 4 different ways.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, no, I was not the lead. I don't know that anybody was the lead because we all had different... There may have been somebody. I don't think there was a lead reporter on it, but we all did our parts.
And I have to go down in the archives. People who know me from Instagram, they see my reels, and I go down to the archive and pull tapes. So I have to find this Fincham tape from 91. I'm hoping we have it down there somewhere to look at it again for the first time in 30 years to see... what was said. What do you think he said? Or do you think you know what he said?
I don't know what he said. I know what it sounded like.
Okay.
And it sounded like he said, I should have killed the bee. That's what it sounded like to me. That's what it sounded like to Carl. That's what it sounded like to a number of people in the newsroom. But again, it had to be more clear or whatever, because the other thing is Tyson speaks with a lisp, if you will, and so. But the other thing was that they had just finished talking about his victim or alleged victim at the time, and the fact that he said what we think we heard him say so closely after all of that had just concluded was a logical conclusion. But that's what it sounded It's what it sounded like to me. And Carl and I listened to it over and over and over again. Yeah, we kept listening.
And
I didn't. Carl still had his headphones on, so I couldn't hear it.
I'm not sure if you know this, but the weekend that incident took place, the rape took place in Indianapolis, possibly that same day, Patty Spitler had a one-on-one with Tyson. And Tyson makes some advances towards Patty. Mm-hmm. And Patty kind of says, oh, no. And she talks about this on the episode I did with her. She goes, oh, no. And then later that day, that night, is when the things go down.
Oh, yeah. I'm not surprised.
So, for whatever reason, Wish is kind of woven throughout this trial a little bit.
Interesting. I'll have to ask Patty about that.
Yeah.
Again, it's not surprising.
No, and it's of course, that was Patty's job back then, interviewing. Did you ever have a one-on-one with Tyson at all, interview-wise, or in the hallway at the hotel? Or
no, but we had to follow him. We followed him out to Vegas, my photographer Jim Hester and we went to his house, and he came to see who was outside the gate, and we were one of the crews, and he said something about, I think you better leave now before. So I talked to him.
Tyson said that to you?
Yeah, he said it to
because
us.
It was he saw you and was like...
Somebody whispered in his ear and said, that's that B from Indianapolis that was going to testify against you. So, yeah.
So this was years later?
This was, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because he's very intimidating.
He could be, but he lived in a gated community. Mm-hmm. And again, I would have to ask my good buddy Jimmy Hester, a photojournalist who I worked with a lot. We went out there. There was a lot of stuff that we were trying to cover, and Muhammad Sadiq, I don't know if you know that name or not. He told us that he could get us an interview with Mike because he had written a book, and the late Muhammad Sadiq, and so we were waiting for the interview with Mike, and Sadiq never delivered. So we took it upon ourselves to go. Wow. And try to find him, and he was a bit hostile about it. So we're like, okay, Mike.
It's Mike Tyson.
Yeah, we'll go.
And for people who weren't around back then in the early 90s and late 80s, to experience what was Tyson mania, as a kid, we would have events at the house when he was fighting on pay-per-view.
Oh, yeah.
Where your friends would come over, and you'd each pay $5, and you'd buy the pay-per-view, and I was a little kid, and it'd be $100 to watch this fight, and Tyson would knock the guy out in 10 seconds.
There you go.
And then...
There it is.
So it was huge. He, the baddest man on the planet.
Yeah, and there was some backlash in the community against me because when it was revealed that I would possibly be testifying against Mike Tyson, especially in the African American community. They did not like it. How could you? What are you doing, Tina? You're just and I'm like, I'm not doing anything. So there was some, and that went away quickly too. So
yeah, let's talk about that moment you found out in '93 that you're moving from weekends to weekdays. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that meeting? Mm-hmm. What'd you feel? Vindication?
I think I was excited. Paul Karpowitz was the GM at the time, and he said, Tina, I think it's time that we do this. And Lee and part of me, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. So I'm a little okay. What is it? What's the move here? Okay. And then Paul assured me. Lee was there in the meeting. We were upstairs, general manager's office upstairs, corner office. They had called me up and said, hey, we think that you would be the perfect person. It's time. And, so on and so forth. And I was like, so at the time, I didn't know what to feel. I didn't know what to think. I just had a lot of questions. But a short time after that, we're doing interviews, and walking from one place to the other. And then after that, we're on the air. Ken and I are on the air. And so there wasn't a whole lot of time to reflect on it, absorb it, what have you, because in news, every job I've ever had, they tell you, well, when you come early because we got to get you onboarded and do a little of this and a little of that and get you ready. It's never you're working the first day. You're going. You hit the ground running. So there is no orientation. Here's your computer, here's your desk, here's a mic. You see, that's what the photographers are.
Yeah.
So I just didn't have a whole lot of time to process it or what have you, because shortly after the announcement, boom, you're on the air. You're doing it.
Do you think you were ready?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. If I wasn't ready, I wouldn't have gotten the job here, and I wouldn't have. The first day, they said orientation and some other things. I was on the air within 2 hours.
Nice.
I mean, I was out in the field within 2 hours. Well, Tina, I know we said we were going to do so-and-so and such, but can you run out here and catch this VO head or SOT? And I'm like, yeah, not a problem.
Do you remember what that story was, your first story in 83? I wouldn't expect it to.
No, I don't remember what it was. I remember very clearly, though, because we're still friends to this day. At the time, Sherman Burdett, who is a big-time roving anchor, reporter, lifestyles reporter over at Fox 59. At that time, Sherman was an editor, a videotape editor who was wanting to get into TV. But anyway, he was editing stories. And so I was sitting at my desk. I remember I was right next to a woman named Ethel Micah. And people used to confuse Ethel and me. I don't know why, but they would call me Ethel and call her Tina. But we had a good time with that. But Sherman was the first person in the building, because everybody was so busy in the newsroom, to come over and say, "Hey, hi, welcome." And he said, "Are you Tina?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, have they shown you where this, and this is?" And I said, "Well, no, not yet." He said, "Oh, my goodness." He said, "Well, hi, I'm Sherman, and this is how this works." I said, "Thank you so much," because I was wondering about that. And today is his birthday. As we speak, it's Sherman's birthday today. And we communicated today, and he said, "Hey, we've got to get together." We've been friends, I mean, really, really, really good friends since that day. Because I just loved him, he just loved me, and we clicked. And so that, I remember that. If you ask about first day remembrances, or what do I remember the first day, I remember that I met one of my best friends that I've had for life almost.
That's amazing.
I met Sherman. Sherman was who I met. And then shortly after that, Debbie and Patty were really, and we're still friends. We're still good friends to this day. So, yeah. But when I went to Chattanooga, they said, well, orientation, get you going. No, the first day I was out on a story. So the thing of it is, you ask, was I ready? If you're not ready, you can't do it. They're not, they if they say go and you come back and you can't do it, or you miss a deadline or what have you, you basically don't have a job. So I knew how to do what I needed to do. So
You've said several times that in this market or in this business, it's not difficult all the time being black, but more so being a woman is more of a challenge.
Absolutely.
Explain that.
It's a male-dominated industry, and the women in the newsroom, we used to have discussions a lot about the top stories, the prime assignments, all of these different things. They would be entrusted in the care of the men. The women would get the day after Thanksgiving shopping, or the parades, or this or that. So it took a little doing to get the trust levels up to where women can handle these stories just as much as the men can. So absolutely, way more sexism than racism.
Do you feel like you carried the weight of the black community when you get promoted in '93 to weekdays?
I didn't think about that.
There was a lot of ink on you, and the Star and the Recorder, and it was for the black community a big deal.
Did I feel as if I carried the weight? I felt like I didn't want to disappoint. I felt like I wanted to keep doing the best that I could do. And I felt like if I did that, then we would all be okay. But in terms of taking on a new role, a new responsibility, specifically for black, for my African American heritage and things of that nature, I felt like if I just keep doing what I'm doing, then I will be. That's just going to be me.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel a special. Not at that time. Again, you know how sometimes people ask you when you're doing things, and things are going on in your life and what have you, and then people ask later, well, what was that like, or did you feel this, or did you? No, not all the time. because you just had a job to do. You just had a job to do. You had deadlines to meet. You had stories to tell. You had people to interview. You had things to organize. You just had things to do. And so at the time, not always. No.
So in 97, you and Ken Owen get pulled into a conference room and told, is it by Lee, you're going back to weekends. Was that a demotion?
Well, yes and no. It certainly was musical. It was a changing of the chairs, and that happens a lot too. Ken and I talked about that a lot. We talked about that a lot.
And management says, but actually, you get more viewers in the weekend, so you're going to have more exposure.
Yeah,
than
that's how they spun it.
Your 5 p.m. slot. Was that true?
I mean, you could look at it that way. You could also look at it as there were some other talent that they wanted to get that exposure for, and that spot had been built up and was winning, actually, which is that was the weirdest thing.
You were number one.
Yeah, I know. Ken and I didn't understand. But then again, sometimes you do understand. And if there's somebody that you want to, I guess that you want to build up and take advantage of the ratings never went back to where they were when Ken and I were there. I will say that. But that's how that goes. I mean, hey, if you're in the business long enough, things like that are going to happen, and they do. And it's not that they happen, it's how you spin out of it or how you come out of it. So Ken and I both did okay.
You go to weekends. Ken leaves around 2000-ish because, and I'll have Ken in here soon to talk to him about this because he has this incredible library of videos online.
Oh, my goodness.
On several different websites that I've been using for research. But Ken leaves. He kind of asked station management, well, I have Mike Ahern's spot. When he leaves eventually, management wasn't willing to put that in ink, so Ken left. 2001 comes around, July 29th of July 2001. You've been working without a contract since that March up to July, and you walk away. What happened?
I had a couple of other possibilities that I felt were a lot more. There were new challenges, money. There were two that I was trying to decide between. And I had a little time to decide, and so I took the time to do that. And guess what happened? 9/11. Yeah, 9/11 happens. And so those two opportunities dry up. And so, I had to do some quick changing and moving around and trying to figure out what the next move was, since those two opportunities that I had dried up, and they couldn't do what they wanted. I'm not going to name them because it's not their fault. I mean, the economy, it just happened like that right after. So, I went from having two jobs to no job, actually three, because I resigned from here because it was just a new chapter, a couple of new opportunities. I just want one. I was going to choose between one or the other, and didn't get a chance to because, like I said, 9/11 happens. This was July, August, September. Yeah, it happens right after that. So, and these jobs were supposed to start. One was in October, and another was supposed to be in September.
Of course, that's how it works out. Of course, it has to be the worst terrorist in history.
Yeah. So
to throw your plans off. You do some freelance work.
Did some freelance.
RTV6, a couple of other things.
Yeah.
You come back to Wish in 2002, that April or May. What led you back?
Scott Blumenthal called me. He said, "Hey, get back here." He said, "I have Scott Blumenthal, who was a general manager, he was vice president and GM, and he said, look, he said, I don't know if you want to go back into that newsroom or not, but he said, I think you're management material, frankly." And I said, "Scott, I've never done it." He said, "Well, I think you can." And he said, "I've got an opening. One of my department heads is leaving, and I think that your skill set will translate, and I think you could do a bang-up job there. Are you coming?" Scott was very blunt. "Are you coming?" I said, "Well, I'll come down and talk to you." So we talked in his office, and I came down. He said, "So what are you going to do?" I said, "Okay, I'll give it a try." He said, "I don't want to hear what you can't do," because I was really just trying to let him know I've never been in management. I don't know anything about it, but I'm willing to give it a shot. And I did, and I loved it.
And this is as Community Affairs Director.
Community Affairs Director, yes.
So what were your responsibilities in that role?
Oh my goodness, keeping the station involved. For the most part, fundamentally, keeping the station involved in doing good. Keeping the station involved in doing good, and so that involved partnerships. Feel good stories if it needed to be done, come about. Just everything that, public service announcements, making sure that they stayed, making sure that our station kept track of everything that needed to be on the air as far as public service was concerned, keeping us legal. I had to learn how to do that. Reports that basically were proof of performance that we are operating as responsible, contributing citizens in the community, in our community of license, and having fun. Having a good time with it at the same time.
And you're emceeing a lot of events, charity chicken dinners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was fun.
So
I love that.
You're here again, 2002. Mm-hmm. Now let's go to 2014. Mm-hmm. D-Day. Mm-hmm. Who was station ownership at that point in time? Was that still Lynn?
No, that was. Oh my goodness. They own Fox and the other.
Okay, so this was Nexstar.
Nexstar, yeah, thank you. I did. Media General was coming, but Nexstar bought Media General.
Right.
Yeah, and they strictly bottom line, and I was in a department that was non-revenue generating, which means I wasn't making any money for the station. I was giving money away. So, and that's one of the things I love. I was, we were spending money, or at least doing kind of quid pro quo with different partnerships and different organizations, different not-for-profits. We would give goods and services, and they in return would give goods and services. But it was always more on our part than it was on theirs.
Right.
So, but in terms of just the bottom line and sales, community affairs cost money and didn't generate anything. So, when they came in and did their ownership, did their assessment, that was one of the departments that had to go, in addition to some others and some other people. So,
was this before or after CBS leaves?
After. In all of that, in the midst of all of that, Wish TV loses its station affiliation.
How'd you react to that?
Dismay. Like how I've never heard of anything. I just couldn't believe it. But then again, when you heard the conditions and the circumstances and everything that went into it, it made sense. So yeah.
2014. How do you walk away from 30? What's that last day feel like? I'm sure you're hurt. You've got to be just devastated after 30 years.
Well, I wasn't at all surprised. Now, mind you, I'm a department head, okay? So I'm sitting in those meetings. I'm seeing what the bottom line is. I know. And for the last probably 3 or 4 years prior to that, at least maybe 4, maybe even 5 prior to that, we're all asking to cut back, rearrange, do whatever. And so I knew that it's kind of like a self-adjusting brake. You can only do so much for so long. So when we got new ownership, I was not surprised, and I was not hurt. I felt badly for those who had to, call me up and tell me. And it was they could not have been nicer. They said, Tina, we're sorry. And I said, I know. So I wasn't walked out of the building. I wasn't walked in, they said, well, do whatever you need to do. It was total trust. I was able to come back that weekend, get my office cleared out. They said, well, take your time, do what you need to do. So it was so amiable, just such an amiable split. A lot of respect on both sides, on both ends. And so I have nothing to say about the people who were here. They had to do what they had to do. So.
That's good to hear. A couple more things as we're running on time here. Were you here? You were here during the building expansion of 2000.
Yes.
What was that transition like when I think we more than doubled the office space with the new building?
Well, yeah, it was. Wait a minute, I'm trying to think, because 2001 was when I left, right? That was 9/11.
Yes.
And the building expansion was in 2000?
I believe so.
Yeah. It was an adventure. It was fun.
Okay.
It was fun.
Nothing too memorable, no good stories, no roofs caving in.
Wish I did. No, nothing like that.
Nothing dramatic.
No.
So how do you find your way over to WTLC?
Again, see, I haven't really had to work for a whole lot of this stuff that's happened to me. I was at home in my kitchen one day, and the operations manager and midday host, Karen Vaughn, called me. She got my number, whatever. She called me on my cell. I said, hey, I'd like to really talk to you about coming down and talking to us because we think you would be a great fit for our afternoon show. We've been trying out a lot of people, and I'm like, yeah, a lot of people have been dying in that spot too, because the last person who was there passed away. The person before that was there, died, and then the person before that. And the first time I was there, and after I took the job, I sat down in the studio. I said, the only thing I'm going to ask for you guys for is give me a different chair. I said, I'm not going to sit in that same chair. I'm not going to sit.
And was this Amos Brown's slot from 12 to 3?
Yeah.
And he held that spot for a long time.
A long time. But I didn't direct. People keep saying I took Amos's spot. I did. Amos had been gone because, let's see, Amos passed in 15. I didn't go to TLC until 19.
Right.
I didn't go there until 19. So there have been several hosts, and again, a couple who had passed away unexpectedly. There have been a number of people in that spot. And so Karen was saying we think that maybe we just give it a different look, a different chance, and perhaps you can do it. And I said, I've never done radio. I've always wanted to. And again, I was just doing freelance and some stuff on my own and everything. And so I said, yeah, I'll give it a shot.
And Amos was one of your biggest supporters.
Amos and I were good friends. We were really good friends.
When you moved back to Weekends in 97, I've been to the archives of the Recorder. Mm-hmm. Almost weekly, Amos is raising all hell about you and calling the black community to arms, and we need to write letters, and he loved you.
Yeah, I loved Amos. We were really, really good friends. He was an amazing man. I don't think people realize and understand and fully appreciate how brilliant Amos was. I mean, he's almost savant-like in his command of numbers and knowledge and everything. Amos would do everything just off the cuff. He could quote numbers, figures, facts, statistics, all that stuff right off the. I, on the other hand, had to. But within all of that, he was just a tremendous human being, and we would talk on the regular. He was just an amazing talent, and absolutely, and one of the best community advocates I think that this community has ever seen. He was everywhere. He was an activist everywhere, with everybody and everything. So.
Radio, television, print. Mm-hmm. He had a show on Channel 20, I think it was back in the day, and just he was omnipresent. And now you're sitting in that spot. I won't say in that chair. Now you're sitting in that spot.
I'm sitting in that time slot. I have no, and that was the only thing that I asked when Karen, because after I talked to Karen, she said, well, let's talk to Dion, who's a regional VP and general manager. And I said, the only thing I ask is that you all ask that I not try to I'm not Amos. I can never be Amos. I can try to do the show and bring it to where we have a few more people listening, because they had lost a lot of listenership and everything. I said, I can do that, and I can be professional about it. But I said, if you're looking for another Amos Brown, another community advocate, a civic leader, and all these things, that is not me. That's not my thing. I'm more informational and connectivity. I said, I really do fit the title, community connection, because I can connect the devil out of folks with resources and things, and I can help educate, but I'm not Amos. And if that's what you're looking for, I can't do the job. No, we want you to do your own thing. So they have been more than gracious and supportive, and 4.5 years later, we're good. We're good over there. So
last thing I want to show you, we have pictures all over the walls here at Wish TV. If you ever come here for a tour, there are photos everywhere. Yeah. My only issue is that most of the people on the walls are white and they're men. So one of my projects coming up will be to change that and put some people of color on the wall and more women on the wall. Mm-hmm. And I found one of my favorite photos I found in your file downstairs in my archives.
Oh, my goodness. Let me see.
Is this file here. Who's in this photo?
Oh.
And if you're listening, I'll put this up on the website in our show notes.
Oh, my goodness.
Here's a better shot of it right there.
That's me. Okay. Oh, here's the photo. Okay. That is Jimmy Hester, who I was talking about, Marcus Collins, Sandra Chapman, Tamara Washington, although she goes by Renee, myself, and this is Dre. DeAndre, what's DeAndre's last name? But anyway, he just left not too long ago, actually. Dre, Jimmy, Marcus, Sandra, Tamara, and me.
I love that photo.
Yeah, that's and this was the African American contingent. We call it our NAACP meeting. So that's what we called it, our NAACP meeting.
Well, hopefully I can convince management to put more stuff like this on the walls because you've had an extraordinary career here. You continue to have an extraordinary career.
Oh, thank you.
And like I tell all of our guests, on behalf of myself and the people who work in this building today, thank you for what you've done.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you for being a part of Wishtory.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. It's still a pleasure, and I appreciate it. Thank you for what you're doing, because history is what keeps us where we need to be. It absolutely does. And I admire your love of history. I admire your command of history. You took me back to some places. So, again, thank you. You're doing an excellent job.
This is our story, our Wishtory. Local then, now, and always. Wish TV. You can find more podcasts from Wish TV on the All Indiana Podcast Network at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.